He says perhaps the most popular explanation offered by skeptics is the hallucination theory, right?
Sure.
According to which the appearance of Jesus was really just hallucinations experienced by the disciples, right? They, they just, all of them had this hallucination because Jesus said he was going to do it, and so, and they were traumatized.
Yeah, traumatization,
and so they had it. The problem here with this is, actually, he says there's multiple problems with this, right? Yeah. Hallucinations are by nature subjective and individual, right? There's no scientific basis for the idea that a group of people can have the same simultaneous, hallucination and on repeated occasions even, right? And hallucinations also tend to align with a person's expectations, right? If you expect something, then it's more easy to, have a hallucination about it. But many of the first believers obviously didn't expect Jesus to rise from the dead, right? And clearly the Apostle Paul didn't expect that, right?
Right. Yeah, the road to Damascus, but also they sat down, they ate with him. I mean, this would be very much elaborate. They're cooking a meal and then having it with them.
It's not
He's
like
teaching from
some
them.
fuzzy, kind of image way off in the distance and say, oh, there he is, he rose from the dead. No, these people ate with him, they sat with him, they touched, John says we touched him and, and heard him and all kinds of things, so yeah.
The hallucination invites them to touch him too, and yeah. It's not like an appearance in the sky like these kind of like Marian prophecies from Mexico or Honduras or wherever. It's not, 3 kids can see her, and if you truly really believe, you'll see the outline of her in the clouds, and to show the kids hell, and we're just supposed to believe them. But no, they're walking, they're talking, they're eating. He's living with them for this period of time between the resurrection and the ascension. Well, something is happening there, and so much so that Paul is even pointing back to the 500 witnesses at least that have witnessed him, the ones that they kind of know about him.
Yeah.
And there are other naturalistic theories, but the point has been made. In the end, there has to be some satisfactory explanation for the remarkable events that took place after Jesus' crucifixion. If you accept that God could have raised Jesus to life again, I suggest to you that there's no better explanation to the evidence.
Right. And so why should you believe in the resurrection of Jesus, he asks? Well, he says for 2 basic reasons. First, the resurrection of Jesus is an integral element of the Christian worldview, right? Sure. It's part of the whole deal, right? It falls apart, right? If you don't have the resurrection. The Christian worldview makes sense of the things we take for granted for the universe and our place in it, and so it falls apart if you don't have the resurrection. Secondly, only the resurrection of Jesus makes sense of what we know about the life of Jesus, right? The lives of his early followers, the writings of the New Testament, and the origin of the Christian church. So it explains all of that. It explains the life of Jesus, his followers, their writings, the Christian church, the things that we've been talking about, right? All of this is explained by the resurrection. So, in terms of criteria, we might say it has powerful explanatory power, right? It explains all kinds of things, right?
And again, the resurrection is something that is hard to understand, but it's also what we would want to have happen. We talked about that a couple episodes ago. It's it's almost a grand gesture of sorts. It's a 10 out of 10 people don't leave this world alive except the one who did. So what's different about him? And what Christian theologians for 2,000 years now have done is said, okay, here's the Old Testament. It's still important. Let's go back to it. And we're seeing all these things that even Jews of the time would point to, Isaiah 53 and Psalm 22 and Psalm 23 and all these different prophecies, and even the disciples at the time point back to them in their writings. And so the culmination of history, according to the Christian worldview, is culminated in the life, death, and resurrection. And the resurrection is the big exclamation point of Jesus.
Right, and his point is, there isn't really a good alternative explanation, right?
Yeah. Oh, it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, something happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the best explanation?
Yeah.